You know, as a pastor through the years, my experience has been that depression is something that is not comfortably talked about in the church, and I regret that. And I think we've got to work very, very hard as pastors and leaders, as elders, board members, and folks that shape the culture of a church to make that a topic and a subject that's a little easier to talk about in the house of faith, and also supply the resources and encouragement needed to help people get from one emotional place to the other. Tara Lalonde is with us. She is a professional psychotherapist here in the Greater Toronto area, and you spend a great deal of your time as a professional dealing with this reality, and it's depression is common, whether people range from atheist to spirit-filled Christian, whatever terminology or nomenclature we want to use. When I was growing up, I thought, something was wrong with someone. There was just a problem. I had full disclosure, I had an aunt who was never adequately diagnosed for depression in the late 50s, early 60s, and ended up taking her life. And it broke my father's heart. He was very, very close to her. And forever he harbored just not anger as if sin, but he harbored hurt that other family members, or he never got her the help that they needed. But it was a different era and time. Now today, when I approach this issue of depression, I see so much of it as being, a lot of it is a brain chemistry issue. A lot of it can be circumstantial and how you cope, but it is a problem. So let's talk about this issue and share with us your thoughts, and let's see if we can't get folks at least better educated and more comfortable with this idea of depression. You talk about in some of your thoughts and in your therapies, you talk about spiritual, physical, cognitive, situational, relational, a lot of different things. I spent a lot of time in talking here and not let you talk. I apologize, but my heart is very heavy and full about this. Let's talk about depression, and you just open up and share your thoughts, and then I'll come back with some more questions.
I appreciate that you kind of noted all these different factors. Depression is widespread. It is something that touches most people's lives, either personally or someone that they know. And I'm pleased that our culture is finally beginning to become more aware and more accepting and offer help. But what is depression, and what is the cause, and all of this? Well, there's a number of different factors, and it's more like a spectrum than it just is one thing. You mentioned the chemical side. Absolutely. There are depressions that are solely chemical related, with dopamine, with serotonin, norepinephrine.
Something in the brain is not
firing right.
Yeah,
right.
That's a great phrase, firing.
Right, and that when it is something chemical, you need medication. So talk to your doctor and get medication to help your brain fire, in the same way someone with diabetes would go and get insulin.
And feel no shame
and feel no shame about that.
Don't have any baggage with that.
Right.
Some people do. That's why I say.
Many people do. So being able to recognize that's a really important piece. Then there's the other side, which is very situational. And most of us experience low-level situational depression.
Okay, so something happens in our lives?
Something happens in your life or in your relationships, or perhaps in your past that you really didn't deal with, but now in your 40s it's coming back and it impacts. And it can be years and years and years ago.
You say, where did that come from?
Where did that come from?
And then it's just not the issue, but then it's, why am I pondering this issue?
Right, and it comes back and you need to process it, because unfortunately the brain doesn't forget. It just goes to a different place in your brain, which is not front cognitive thinking, but something can happen to bring it back. And that can be a low level, you process through the loss of a loved one, anything, you can process that through, but it doesn't impact your daily functioning. However, other times it does begin to impact your daily functioning. So you've got low mood, you have lack of motivation, you have difficulty sleeping or sleeping too much. A number of different things happen.
Extreme behaviors.
Right, extreme behaviors, different things that are going on, and it's impacting your life so that you can't function as well. That moves more into the clinical depression range. That can be both chemical and situational. It can be only situational. There's a spiritual component that can be happening there, depending on your theology, but recognizing we live in a spiritual world. So the enemy's real and can get in there. There's all these different factors. So if you're feeling any of these symptoms and it's starting to really impact life, seek help. Go to a life care centers in East Toronto, or find a counseling center in your area to actually ask the questions. What am I going through? What do I need to look at? And they will help you work through the negative thinking, work through processing history or processing what's there. There's always help, there's hope.
So Tara, let's say that I'm married to someone who's depressed, or you're married to someone who's depressed, or you have a parent who may be now in their 50s, 60s, early 70s experiencing depression. Maybe it's been there for a while. What's a runway that we can take off from to try to approach them about getting help? Because sometimes it's hard to get that depressed person to move from point A to point B, especially if it's a place where they might find themselves vulnerable to have to reveal or discover that they really are depressed.
And that's really, really difficult because there's all the shame, there's the accepting of it for the person. Unfortunately, we can't make somebody address their depression or their pain, but you can recognize, hey, you're seeming down, normalize it for them, that this is, so many people in our culture experience this kind of thing. There is help if you want it. It takes work, you're gonna have to actually look at things, but there's no shame in it. Medication can help. Sometimes medication just gets you in the zone to be able to work at it, but we believe in you. We have hope that things can get better, and really encouraging them to seek the help that they need.
Talk to me as a pastor, and as you talk to me, speak to other pastors that are watching. What can we do in leadership to create a culture where depression and I say sensitively mental illness, or whatever streams or strands there may be, how can we create a culture where this is something where people would come to the church, seek to the church, not that the church is qualified to help as a therapist is, but at least be a air traffic controller, a traffic cop, to send someone to the right places to get at least that first assessment. What can the church do?
That is a fabulous, fabulous question, because unfortunately church culture tends to make faith the answer, and if you experience depression, you don't have enough faith. That's not true.
Pray and read the Bible. You need to
pray and read the Bible,
Bible,
and it'll go away. I wish that were true. And you know what? For some people, that is true.
But I've known pastors that are depressed, and it's basically vocational to pray and read the Bible in part, and they struggle because there are other issues.
Absolutely.
And we're not minimizing the power of faith in reading the Bible. That's central to who we are here mentally.
And that's a wonderful resource, and that does help. But for pastors to be able to communicate, there's no shame. We're not going to question your faith and your salvation, because that often is there. Well, you must not be a Christian because you're going through.
Or you lost your salvation,
right,
which creates a greater insecurity.
Oh, and so much fear and everything. Allowing this to be a normal part of human life in a fallen world, and then encouraging people, there is hope. Come for prayer, because prayer is powerful. Come for prayer. We can talk you through this. And if pastors start to see this is deeper than what I can provide, then have a referral network.
I've gotten into the habit of telling a congregation that I pastor now, I welcome folks and I say, you are in a place filled with imperfect people who love God. And I have found in just a few short months, it's like a release valve. You can just feel the steam releasing in the room where, there is no condemnation. We're not here to judge you. We're here to love you and help. And I use a phrase, come in with us, we'll do life together.
That's biblical.
Yeah. And so for me, that's encouraging. I think pastors can set the tone that mental illness or depression or anything else is workable, solvable, if you'll just, even in the first 5 minutes that you're welcoming people, defining the congregation for what they really are, what we really are. Is we're fallen, imperfect people just trying to make it on the journey who have been changed by Christ.
And we will remain that way until glory.
That's right.
So we're not supposed to be perfect. We can take our masks off in church.
Yeah. Hey, will you come back and see us?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're great. Really enjoy having you here. Really, really do. Tara Lalonde is our guest, and you know, the things that we talk about here are issues we hope that you're talking about, are thinking about, and maybe praying about. And there's a phone number there on the screen. It's our prayer line. It's open 24 hours a day. If you're watching Tara and me online, anywhere in the world, the prayer line is open right now, wherever you are, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So you can call. If you're watching us on television in Canada, the United States, in the middle of the night, give us a call. We're here to help you. And while not psychotherapists on the other end of the line, they are praying people on the other end of the line who have scriptures that are there applicable to your situation. Maybe it's depression, or maybe it's a situation related to your marriage. Maybe you have a job need. I don't know what it is. But just give us a call and allow us to just share. You share with us and allow us the honor of praying with you. And we'll go to God together and see what He will do. So glad that you're here, that you've joined us. Tara, thanks again.